Hi, I'm Nicoleta Acatrinei from Princeton University, and in today's presentation, I would like to share with you some of my research on public service motivation and pro-social behavior of public servants, and how artificial intelligence and digital transformation will impact their activity. I will present you the main research questions, some working definitions, of theoretical analysis uh, of artificial moral agent, mainly virtue ethics approach and the utilitarian approach, and see how these two approaches can help us coin an ethical framework for the robot public servant. And I will end with a possible towards an artificial public service virtue model. So it is, as government activities are the backbone of human society, it's straightforward to ask what are the determinants of the quality and efficiency. And even more, when these services are delivered through artificial moral agents and or more through humans. And the concept of robot public service I introduced, it is central as being the main artificial moral agent because it will mimic the work ethic and behavior of the public servant. So the main research question in this case is, what is the most suitable ethical framework for digitally delivered public services, the virtue ethics approach or the utilitarian one? We will use the public administration theory and artificial moral agent approach, the virtue ethics. I intend in second paper to use the agent deed consequence model, but for this presentation, I will focus only on the two first ones. So this concept of public service motivation was coined in the 90s in public administration literature as a response to the failure of the new public management. What was new public management? It was a copy-paste of incentive schemes from the private sector to the public sector with the objective to make the delivery of public services more efficient. The problem is this copy paste of incentives from the private to public service was a complete failure, not only in the United States, but in all countries. So how could we explain that high-powered incentives didn't succeed to motivate public servants more? The explanation was that, in fact, these people attracted to public services are not interested by money. They are not interested by extrinsic rewards, but they are attracted by the mission, by serving higher goals than themselves. And they engage in an altruistic way in the delivery of public services. And they choose that mission, those missions exactly for these characteristics. In my research, I found that public servants are also interested by extrinsic rewards, and surprisingly, both type of incentives actually lead to prosocial behavior and to reciprocal altruism. So we are now in the presence of a digital benevolent administrator with robot public servants as main agents. The question is, can we ascribe virtues and ethical behaviors? And in this case, what would be the right incentive schemes and rewards we use in artificial intelligence and machine learning associated to these robot public servants to behave ethically? So we use concepts already developed of artificial moral agent and virtuous moral agent. I use this with in two ways. We can use applied to public administration. This model it has two ways. First, from the beneficiary to the agent, meaning what is the perception of the beneficiary of the public services on the morality of the agent, either it's a human or a robot, and from the agent to the beneficiary, how human and the robot take ethical decision impacting the beneficiary. So that's why we introduced the concept of artificial public service virtue model. I would say that yes, we can talk about an artificial moral agent because the decision taken are moral, but in the same time, it's not really moral because it's not a human being. It is a machine that takes a moral decision. So I don't know if we can speak about a moral agent in this case. It's more an agent taking moral decisions, in my view. So we know that virtue ethics comes from the Aristotelian tradition, even we found it also in our tradition, like the Confucianism. It is about learning about moral character, moral development, learning how to take the right decision. But I think in the case of artificial moral agents, it is about how algorithms will learn to take decisions. So again, it's we force a little bit here the virtue ethic approach to machines. My own definitions of an artificial moral agent: it's mathematics in iron for human flourishing. So, but it is a good working concept for what we are going to do. Now, how we do it, we use the virtue approach developed by Howard and Montan. We put in mirror, and the utilitarian approach proposed by Bauer. So the first one, it's focusing on practical skills and how we can train the data on a set of inputs to multiple layers to take the right decision by optimizing the outputs on the inputs. So it is an incremental learning process, which mimics in a way the learning process in the virtue approach of practicing of virtues. In the case of the utilitarian approach, things are more clear, because we have two choices: an act-centered choice, that means the agent will use the action that will maximize the good. But in this case, that means we have the right criteria to evaluate the actions and to say which action will really maximize that good. This is more difficult to compute. And we have the rule-centered approach, where we have the rule, we have the situation that match the rule, but that doesn't mean we'll necessarily always maximize the output. So Bauer proposed a kind of two-level to offer a solution to this context. That means for a situation where we know the rule and we know the situation, it's like intuitive thinking. So it's going straight forward. We apply the rule. While we do not know the rule, because the situation is unknown, which resemble to a critical thinking. And in this case, the system switched to act-centered choice maximizing good, with the condition that we know how to evaluate and say that actions, it's better than it's maximizing the good against other action that will do it in a less good way. So we have these two models, both have benefits and pitfalls, both the virtual ones in regard to the robot public servant. I would mention that the first one, it's kind of allowing to mimic better the altruistic type, the prosocial type, the human touch that we are looking for, mainly because we will have a lot, and we have a lot of social robots in the delivery of public services. And in this utilitarian case, it is more efficient and it secures fairness. Fairness, it's a very important constraint in the delivery of public services, because we have to secure equal treatment, equal access, equal benefits to all people. So this is a very important factor in the choice of an ethical framework. It is easy to implement. And I would say it's a law for higher accountability, because we know exactly why that decision was taken, by whom was taken, in which conditions, and for whom. So yes, if we go back, we can talk that about a public service virtue model, and allow me to reshape the question of the research question: what is the most suitable ethical framework? Instead, considering that, is it the robot public servant a better public servant by following the model of a virtuous or a utilitarian approach? So in this case, we ask what is the main difference concretely, and that will be in the case of computation used, and based on the needs of these different approaches, a learning need in the case of the virtue approaches, and more a decision model for the utilitarian one. So I will see very well using Bayesian computation in the first one and decision tree for the second one. So yes, we can talk about such a model. It can stand. The only thing we ask is that the maximizing function is centered on the public service motivation and prosocial behavior. And this is the output we want to maximize. And in this equation, we will have at least three constraints or three main variables that will have to be considered: the degree of autonomy of this agent, the perception of the beneficiary of the public service. You remember that we talk about this is very important, with the idea of maximizing compassion and altruism. So this is the first part of my research, and I'm looking for your feedback. Thank you so much for your attention.